Tovshin Mem Zayin, which this year is 34 years. The Rebbe writes in the Sikhe that there was Shivas Yemei HaMishter, mit verbracht 7 Tage, from Tuesday morning till Monday night. And then the Rebbe put an abrupt end to it, and he put us to work. The Rebbe said there's 30 days till Yud Shvat, so that means every 10 days everyone has to be tested in Nigla and Chassidus. And the Rebbe said, I want the marks. I want the marks. You know, if I had learned my whole life like I learned those 30 days, I would be a goan. I remember preparing for those farhes. Chassidus was not so hard for me. And I didn't have such a difficult... I was a shliach. Who was teaching us Chassidus? Nobody. But Rosh Hashiva was Rabbi Ezer Shochat. And I remember the Gemara. Psachim Daf Tes. It's a very hard sugya. We sat the whole Thursday night because you were going to get a Bechina and the Rebbe was going to get the marks. I remember learning the Meiri on the Sfeikis. Daf Tes, Daf Yud. I'm telling you, if I had learned my whole life like I learned those 30 days... But that's what the Rebbe did. The Rebbe let us celebrate for a week. Shivas Mi'amishte. Und the Nacht Mitzach Gizast Lein in Niglan Chassidus. I remember once, in the very first years when we were learning here in Beis Medrash and Nashon Badas, we were still in the front shul. And I always want to remind everybody, we were there first. They kicked us out of the front shul because, quote, we were disturbing the Rebbe's minyan. We were there before the Rebbe's minyan. The 10 o'clock minyan that they make didn't go on contiguously during the Rebbe's illness. I don't know how many weeks after Gimel Tammuz they reintroduced it, that they put the stand the way they do it now. We were there first. And when they used to come and complain and disturbing the minyan, I'm saying the minyan is disturbing us. We were there right after Gimel Tammuz. These children started right away. But okay, there's room in this Beis HaMikdash for everybody. Le'omer od nachaveri tzali amokim.
Interrupt you, if I may, just for a second. The days of preparation, so I remember that for Talmidus school wasn't a problem. You told them what to learn, gave them a test, and you wrote it. The Rebbe said that everyone should be tested by their mashgiach.
Right.
So there were women that were writing in. Do you remember Mrs. Spain? It was you had to say something in Torah, something in davening, and something in Yossi. Anyway, what I want to tell you is something that inspired me, and I tell my students every year. Somebody called me up. This was a lady who was more like my grandmother's friend. And she said to me, you feel sein verschrieben bei Leb. Those are the words I want to share. That she wanted to, that was all she wanted. She wanted to be verschrieben bei Leb. And she said, Levin, can it nicht, aber it was on the mountain till the other tongue. She said she needs some extra stuff and whatever.
You understand the Yiddish? You understood, yeah?
And I just wanted to say that it was so inspiring because the Smeits zu Wellen sein verschrieben by the...
Yeah, call Amanim to Kosovo Sefer.
And I want to just tell you that it was what I used to call the Rochel Paltiel.
Really?
Yes, I thought
That is so sweet.
That's why I'm telling it to you.
I'm going to go home and tell my family. But she called you.
She called me. I suppose it was an easy number.
You were Mama Rachel. She was your Mama Rachel.
My
My father also called her Mama Rachel.
Yes.
I'm going to tell my father that story.
Please do, because
Oh, that's so sweet.
I tell it to my students without her name.
Yeah.
That's necessary part.
Okay, but that's wonderful.
But that a person should want to be written in by the Rebbe, so she thought, what is she going to do?
Yeah, but she was your mother's age, not your grandmother's age.
She was my mother's
Generation.
sister-in-law.
Right.
She was like 20 years older than my mother.
20 years older, yeah. Oh, I didn't realize.
Anyway, that's for sure now.
My brother just sent us a clip of himself by the Rebbe, and you see her go by, and you see her simche as he stands in front of the Rebbe.
Anyway.
Okay, I will repeat the story. That's a wonderful little... Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my grandmother, in case you don't understand. Okay, now, Rabbi Tanya, we're starting Paltiel. It's been a while. Last week was Chamisha B'Tevis, and the week before that was Chanukah. And I guess the week before that we used this Kislev. I don't even remember what happened to this Kislev. I came here. Huh?
No, it was not.
I'm saying last week was Chamisha B'Tevis. The Sunday before that was Chanukah. The Sunday before that was Chav Tevis. Chav Kislev. And I was shikid. I was on a whirlwind. So I don't even remember. We haven't learned Tanya in a while. Now we finished Perek Tezvav. or completed Perek Vav. Whenever I say finished, I always say the same story. When I say finished, I remember Rabbi Fuchs telling me with my Melamed that he was a Chavruse with the Pchacha Fegin's son. Pchacha Fegin had many children. They were all unfortunately killed in Riga by the Nazis. And he was a Chavrusa with one of Reb Chacha's children. And he got sick. So he couldn't come to yeshiva, so he went to the house to learn by his bedside, to learn Chassidus. He got a shush from the Hanolah. Reb Chacha was incredibly busy. He was never home. She raised the kids alone. He was the Rebbe's personal secretary. Reb Chacha Fegen was the Rebbe's right hand, the Friedrich Rebbe's. And he mamish worked day and night. It is got kamanut. Didn't have a minute free. He happened to be in the house when he came in, Rabbi Fuchs, and he went to learn with his boy. So he walks in and says, "Vos lerentid? What are you learning?" So they said, "We're learning Samachay." It's Hemshech from Rebbe Shmasein. Samachay, Tofresh Samachay. What are you learning? Tofresh Samachay. Vu haltir? Where are you holding? So he tells them, "I'm geendigt mit nersten Maime." We finished the first Maime. So the Reb Chatzah said, "Ich hab durchgetracht dem ganzen Hemshech 30 Mal. Und ich hab mit ihm nicht geendigt. Nicht geendigt dem ersten Maime." That was the quote. I thought through the entire series. It's 100 pages in it. 30 times, and I'm not done with it. But you're finished. You're finished. So I don't like to use the word finished. Like complete. There's a difference between finished. This finished, that means it's all done, or finished, and we're not going back to it. We finished Perek Vav. Now, Perek Vav spoke about Avodah and Lo Avodah. But we're not talking about Lo Avodah. I want to go talk about Avodah, right? There's an idea that a Yid achieves Beinoni through work. And work means a fight. Work means a fight. And if a person reaches a stage that a particular level of Avodas Hashem becomes easy, so there's the solution of Me'ah Pama V'Yachas. You push yourself beyond what you're accustomed to. Remember I told you the story. A Yid darf sich anstrengen, a Jew has to exert himself, and that's your Avodah, Me'ah Pama V'Yachas. Me'ah Pama V'Yachas. And the Alter Rebbe explains basically two approaches to Avodah. In the end of chapter 15, Perek Vav, the Alter Rebbe explains two approaches to Avodah. One approach to Avodah is that a Yid has an avativis. A Jew has a natural love to God. This avativis we're going to see later in Yudches, chapter 18. I assume it's a little bit different, but maybe it's not so different. It's in the neshama. A Jew naturally has a love for Hashem. It's his teva, it's his nature. The good thing is you're born with it. The bad thing is you're born with it. The nature of a Jew's love for Hashem is sufficient to serve Hashem. If your Yitzhara doesn't bother you, if you're lo avodah. But if your Yitzhara does bother you, or you want to do Me'ah Pama V'Achas, you have to arouse it. Inside the neshama, there's a love for Hashem. You use your mind that the love for Hashem, which is hidden in the neshama, should come out, should emerge. So that effort of revealing, in quotations, the inherent, the innate love that a Yid has with Eibush of Mitzvah, the neshama, makes the avativis avodah. If I serve Hashem with this hidden love, as it's in a hidden state, as God gave it to me, that's lo avodah. I didn't do any work. I'm a Jew. I was born with a neshama. If, however, I arouse the avativis, the natural love needed an awakening, a blowing on to create heat and flame, to push me towards defeating my Yetzer Hara, or to push me towards the Me'ah Pama V'Yachas, towards the 101 times, this becomes avodah. Yeah, good? That's method number one. But then there's method number two. And method number two, this is the classic concept of Moyach Shalat Al Alev. That I told you this many times. It says in the beginning of Ayin Beis, Azayis Mashma, that Moyach Shalat Al Alev has two translations. Literally, Moyach Shalat Al Alev means the mind controls the heart. But in the Hemshech Ayin Beis, in the end of the first Maimah, the Rebbe Rashab says, Moyach Shalat Al Alev means the brain teaches the heart. There's a very big difference between teaching the heart and controlling the heart. Controlling the heart is an act of discipline. Teaching the heart is an act of transformation, of awakening. A human being has a mind. And if he has sufficient brain power, and he has enough dedication, he can learn and contemplate, think, to the extent that he should push to have real avas Hashem and real true passion, love of God and fear of God in a full, completely comprehensive way. Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. This is not called revealed in natural love. This is called creating original emotion. I have a mind, and my mind is a master over my heart. If I use my mind to understand, if I use my mind to consider and to contemplate, I can get my heart to be excited, even if it's not consistent with the teva. It could be more than the teva, it could be different than the teva. The teva of Av also has a certain flavor. And this is called creating original feelings to the Yebishter. Later on in the Tanya, it's called the chilu sichliim, fear of God, the love of God, that's not coming from the teva, it's coming from the seichel. It's considered a higher level. It's a higher level in terms of avoida, it's not a higher level in terms of etzem, but it's considered a higher level. If I use my mind, not just to arouse the inherent natural love, but to create original feelings for the Eibishter, by revving up my heart, by exciting my heart based on my mind is learning and thinking, this is considered a more complete level of mayach shalat ala leiv. I'm using my mind to educate my heart to the extent that I have actually pronounced, expressed full-blown feelings of avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem for an Eibishter. Now wait. At the end of this discussion, when the Alter Rebbe presents to us these two methods of avodah, they're both avodah. One is I'm using my mind to arouse the love which is in my neshama, the natural love. The other is I'm using my mind to create original feelings to the Eibishter based on my mind, which is considered a higher madrege. The Alter Rebbe uses the classic words, Zuhi avodah tama lebeinanim. This is the highest beinani possible. Avodah Tama is an expression in Shas. I talked about it when I gave you the Shir. Avodah Tama. Literally, Avodah Tama means a work that's whole, that's complete, that's sincere. Right? Tama means an end. The Gemara says, Vos meit Avodah Tama, Avodah she'ein acharei Avodah. It's an Inyan and Nigla. Avodah Tama has to do with Karbonis and Pigol. But it's not important at the moment. But Avodah Tama means a service after which there is no other. Right? When a person brings a korban, he collects the blood, he works with the blood, and he sprinkles the blood. Sprinkling the blood is avodah tama, because ein acharei avodah. You shecht an animal, you harvest the emerim, you put them into a keli, you salt them, you put them on the mizbeach, and then you're supposed to do zrika. The ivarim were thrown, just like you threw the blood, except by achatas, the ivarim were also thrown. That's called avodah she'ein acharei avodah, the end of a sequence. There's nothing after that. So the expression avodah tama means avodah she'ein acharei, a service after which there is no other service. So in Chassidus, in more than one place, there's someplace else where I saw avodah tama. Could even be in Tanya, I don't remember. But in Baal Shem Tov I saw it, in Kesef Shem Tov. Avodah tama means it's a level of serving Hashem, it's complete, it's the end of a line. To say it in other words, if a Beinani would do any more than this, he would have gone over from Beinani to Tzaddik. This is the top of the mountain, this is the precipice. In physics, you use the word, this is the horizon. Past here, you can't see. Avodah tama lebeinani. The highest madrega of beinani is a beinani who's proactively using his mind, not only to reveal the midas tivium, the natural emotions that he has in his heart, but to create original feelings for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that are fully pronounced. And when this beinani experiences avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, not based on his teva, but based on his seichel, he's a beinani filled with love and fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, passions for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Avodah tama lebeinani, this is the highest madrega of beinani. So chapter 16 begins in the middle of the sentence, as if we're mamish middle of a shmuz. Okay? Peirik tezayin, v'zeh, it's the middle of a conversation. Now I'm going to speak blasphemy. Why? Because I want to speak blasphemy, because you're all nice people. You knew my grandmothers, you're going to let me get away with it. If I was dividing the Perakim, I would start Perek Tazayin from V'yeser al Kain. I'd put these first 10 lines at the end of the previous Perek. Now I understand quite well why the Alter Rebbe doesn't, and actually I understand it even in Das Tachten. But the first 10 lines of this Perek Tazayin are connected to the Avodah Tama at the end of the previous Perek. The whole rest of the Perek is going to be talking about something other. Okay, so we're going to learn these first 10 lines. That's our plan. Okay? But I want you to perceive what's about to transpire as such a continuation. The last Pedic is a mamish in the middle of the Shvuos. The Shvuos is a bein that's called Le'avade. And there's a vein that's called Avade. And the bein is called Avade means he has a fight. Either he has a fight because his Yetzer Hara bothers him, or he has a fight because he could always be doing better. He could do more. And this fight involves arousing his heart. So there's arousing his heart, revealing the Avativis. There's arousing his heart, creating original emotions. This Beinani, who uses his mind to arouse his heart with original emotions, that's called Aveda Tama, says the Rebbe, V'zeh Klal Gadol B'Aveda Tama. This highest status, highest category of Beinani, whose Avedas Hashem is with full-blown Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. As I'm thinking maybe I'm teaching it incorrectly already, because the Kenzai's gate of Beida. Ha'ikir, what's the point? Limshel v'lish leit ala teva. The point is, in the end, to dominate, to control. I'd love to know the difference between the word memshala and the word shlita. They both mean the same thing: dominance, control. Ala teva, over the nature. Shebechol ala smoli, which is in the left ventricle of the heart. See, and over here, when you use the word nature, you mean nature of the animal soul, not the nature of the divine soul. The nature of the animal soul. Nature of the animal soul is an animal. Right? And a human animal, certainly a Jewish human animal, he's not so bad. But he's a behemoth. He's interested in superficial things and expedient things and short-sighted things. And you have to be limshel v'lishet ala teva shebechol asmal. So the Rebbe writes, we're talking about these fancy experiences of passion. But there's a point. The point of all these fancy experiences of passion is the bottom line. What's the bottom line? The actions. So all of this feeling, all of this avodah, even on the highest madrega of avodah, which we're calling aveda tamal beinim, the point of it is lim shel v'lishleit ala teva, to dominate, to control. I guess let's translate lim shel taka to rule over, and lishleit means to dominate. In other words, the word memshala has a more theoretical connotation. The word shlita has a more proactive connotation, I think. Ala teva, over the nature shebechol asmoli, of the left ventricle of the heart. Al yedei, what's your tool? What's your tool of dominating the nefesh habahamis is teva? Oir havaya, a light of Hashem. Hamei the nefesh of the kith shebemoyach, which shines to the mind, to the divine soul which is in the mind. But then it comes down into the heart. Now again, I'm going to translate over here the word velishlet, not to control, but to educate, to teach. Because we're talking here about revealed Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, which is not just a control, it's a transformation. One contemplates with one's mind. That through the effort of his understanding and his contemplation, the word bina represents many levels of intellectual process. One is to understand, another is to ibetrachten, to rethink, iyun, hizbonas, to contemplate. Ruach das vayiras adeshem. And the result of this effort is that a person has a spirit of das. Let's translate the word das as connection. Vayiras avaya b'meich, and the awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is in the mind. Not that this is not emotional, but that it's very, very deep, so we call it b'meich. And it's sufficiently powerful. Lihiyes, to be sur meirah, to stay away from evil. De'eraisa or derabbanan, both a biblical prohibition and a rabbinic prohibition. Va'afilu iser kal shel devreim chas v'sholom, including a secondary, a minor transgression, which is from the Rabbanon. The ava v'yira, that the person experiences consciously, gives him or her the strength to defeat the Yetzer Hara and all of these aspects. And then the Alter Rebbe says, va'ava savaya believe it, right? First he says yira, and he connects it to moyach. And then he says ahava, and he connects it to leiv. Sometimes you have upachad avaya believe it. There's yira and there's pachad. But here he just says yira is b'moyach, and ahava, yira is deeper and quieter, and ava is shallower and pronounced. Believe in one's heart, b'chol ha'yamon, in the right ventricle of the heart. And we learned a long, long time ago in chapter 9, Mole v'godish asher tispashet, it spills over the right ventricle of the heart is so full, but Avos Hashem, that it spills over into the left ventricle of the heart and to the whole goof. Bechasheka, with a longing, bechafetza, and a desire, l'davka bei. To cleave, to be in a state of dveikis with the Eibishter, that means to be one with Hashem to the point of representing Him. B'kiyum mitzvahs, and carrying out the mitzvahs, the Eraisa, the Rabbanon, rabbinic and biblical. And then, of course, comes the Alter Rebbe's default. I teach your students in the Beis Rivka seminaries. I tell them that the Alter Rebbe had a computer that had a pre-programmed. Anytime he mentions Torah, he has to say Keneged Kulam. It's 20 times in the Tanya, 10 times in the Talmud, Torah, Keneged Kulam. And Torah would equal to all. The Alter Rebbe says, I said in the last Pedic, what's the point? The point of this incredible sense of Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, which we call Avodah Tama, because it's using the mind to create original emotions. And the emotions are pronounced, and the emotions are revealed, and the emotions are felt consciously. The point of this is, when it comes machshov, dibur, ma'aseh, thought, speech, and action, so Alter Rebbe begins chapter 16 by saying the point of all of these madregas of Ava v'Yireh is that I should be a benyani b'payel. A benyani means I master, I control myself in my thought, in my speech, and in my deed. That's it. Sure. Now again, the way I taught it to you, this is talking about the Avodah Tama lebenyani, but maybe it means both. But okay, let's leave that alone. The bottom line is that we're describing a person who has such depth. I was a kid, I went to Cheder, and some of my Shpiyim, some of my Madrichim talked about Amalek Chassidim. What I didn't understand is that the Amalek Chassidim talked about Amalek Chassidim. And the Amalek Chassidim that I knew talked about also talked about Amalek Chassidim. And the Amalek Chassidim that the Amalek Chassidim talked about also talked about Amalek Chassidim. There's 7 generations. And in Pashtus, in history, the Tanya was written for the Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe. The Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe, gehalten b'Ava v'Yireh. That was baseline. The Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe were on a level of love and fear of God. This was real for them. But at Tzemach Tzedek, the greatest Chassidim holding by Ava v'Yireh. In Lubavitch, it says in Teira Shalom that Reb Greinem said to the Rebbe Nishmas Eiden, ich weiß nicht, the Rebbe mitgehalten, quote, Reb Greinem, the big mashpia in Temach Pimim, mir seine Shen geweint, aber haben nicht kein Ava v'Yireh. Reb Greinem said over 100 years ago, we're already accustomed to the fact that we no longer have Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. So when you learn these ideas in Tanya, I don't mean to be discouraging, but I do mean to be honest. For a human being, the cloud had a strong enough mind. We have a problem learning. We have a problem pushing learning, to concentrate on an idea. Yeah, we come to a shiur, to pay attention for the 40 minutes of the shift, beginning to the end, is a high madrega for us. To sit with a sefer and look inside and learn and not get distracted. And my problem is I fall asleep. I fall in schlafen. Whenever I look at a sefer, I fall asleep. I'm younger than every single person in this room come out, yeah, but I have this disease. I look at the sefer, I fall asleep. The eyes don't work anymore. The eyes used to work. And then they stopped working. I actually finally ordered, I'm embarrassed to say it, I ordered a magnifying glass. I will never look at a sefer, I'm down. Anyway, so that's the problem. But Chassidim Amal, their concentration, they were very strong minds. They were very smart. And of course they were disciplined and well trained. Very strong minds. The amount of brain power necessary to trigger feelings about God, to trigger feelings about pizza is not so hard. Just imagine a good slice of pizza. Pizza, even them gators. I don't know if pizza is exactly your fancy, but whatever it is, Dvarim Gashmi, physical things, a person to get excited, it doesn't require seichel, it requires just visualizing it. But the Hashem, I should love God. I saw it in the Sefer, that he was each of the Masmid Fabreng. He bring a lot. Each of the Masmid was a very big chassid. It was a very, very big chassid. It was a very big chassid. And it was a Fab, and Each of the Masmid, I wanted to give you, you want to have a lesson in relativity. Rabbi Fuchs said to me once about the Bishop the Masmid, fragt trinken mashke wie a fish. He used to drink mashke like a fish. And the Rebbe said once in the Fabrengen, Zufilat and Nish Gedarft. He didn't need too much to get shikir. So which was it? To Rabbi Fuchs, each of the Masber drank so much mashke, and to the Rebbe, it took very little and he was already over. It's all relative. There was a fabreng, and he got shikir. So they had to walk him home, and he would sleep for half an hour and then get up and work. I mean, he was a oivet till mitzah nefesh. He was the real thing. Each of the Masber, the Rebbe, each of the Masber. So he's walking home from Amarengen, and he's inebriated. He's good shikir. And Reb Chaikel was a bocha. He was walking with him. This is in the 30s in Russia. And Reb Yitzchak the Masman is talking to himself. And Reb Chaikel is hearing his mutterings. Yechabem lib. I love him. And he's saying this over and over. Yechabem lib. So Reb Chaikel finally says, Vemen hast du lib. Reb Yitzchak, who do you love? The Meibish. It's easier to say Yechabam Lib about another person. It really is. Libam the Meibishter, to love God, you have to contemplate what the word love means. To appreciate how extraordinary it is for a human being to say, I'm in love with God. The Rambam talks about Avas Hashem. The Rambam uses the expression Choylas Ava. You're supposed to love the Eibishter so much till you're like sick from love. He brings the mashal of a relationship between human beings, where you love somebody else so much that it makes you sick. To love Hashem, b'chalal, is a very odd concept, because he's not a person, he's not physical. Kinderlach, you have to go into the other room, because there's a she in here, sweethearts. Let me see if I have quarters for you. Wait one second, doctor, come ahead. Come here. Come. Okay, I'm sorry I don't have more. This is for you. This is for you, brother. Beautiful, okay. Anyway, so Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem, but klal is not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to understand. The depth of character, you need a very strong mind. Really, you need a very strong mind. Our concepts of smart are relative. That's what the truth of the matter is. In earlier generations, the degree of intelligence and the strength of their minds and the not just the ability to have self-control, but the ability to arouse feelings for something metaphysical, it's really extraordinary. It's really not a simple matter. It's not a simple matter. Now, so right away your question is going to come, so why are we learning it? And it's a pretty good question. But we think about the Eibishter a little bit. Right? The Rebbe brings that if you think about the Eibishter in a way that affects love, and you don't achieve the love, you did the mitzvah. Because you did your best. It's a deep thing. It's a deep thing. It's a deep thing. And the Alter Rebbe here is describing, he said you should know. Great Chassidim. And again, in times of the Alter Rebbe, this was Aleph Beis. If you didn't have Avos Yiras Hashem, you were not a Chassid of the Alter Rebbe. But at Tzemach Tzedek, the Grois Chassidim were Avos Hashem Yiras Hashem. I think I heard it from the Mendel, but it's in the Mendel's book. I told this to you last week. I'm sure I told you last week. And Mendel was very close to David Aradakir. Reb David Aradakir. David Aradakir was in the same world as the Ritchie the Masmid. I'm not going to say he was in the same Madrege. David Aradakir was a Ish Ruchni. David Aradakir was a Yid. Shmer Batuma describes him. Concentration to him was natural. He could stand in the middle of a highway and start meditating, and there was no world. It was just concentration. The Pshilim worked hard in concentration because he was not naturally a thinker. But the David was a brain person, durch and durch. And he was a Moedik at 16. He had Smicha and Dal Chalak Shulchan Aruch. At 16 years old, he got Smicha on 4 of Chalak Shulchan Aruch. But he davened all day long. The David Aradakir. So, during the hard years, that means the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, the David Aradakir didn't make it out of Russia. He died after the war, but he didn't make it out of Russia. He passed away in Russia. His children left Russia. Somebody said to him, when he was trying to leave Russia, David, you live in Atzilus. What difference does it make if you're on this side of the border or that side of the border? Why do you have to leave Russia? The children have to leave Russia because they have children to raise. But you could reach out to some hosts from any place. So David said, Russia is a bad place. And from a bad place, you got to go away. That was his word. David Aradakir. The Mishpach has been working on a sefer for years, but so far hasn't come out. David Aradakir. Anyway, Reb Mendel was close to him. And he would fabren. The Elter Chassidim in Russia were dutiful. I mean, the boys, the Bachrim were gold. gold. You know what it means to be a Chassidish Bacher in Russia? Why would you be... It's suicide. It's suicidal for sure. The degree of Mesiras Nefesh that the Tmimim had in Russia. We're talking not Lubavitch. We're talking the next generation. The children, the grandchildren of the Tmimim. We don't have a hasaga in the sacrifice. Why? They didn't see the golden years. They never saw the Rebbe. The Rebbe Rayatz had left in 1927. Many of these Bacham never saw him. But Mendel remembered the Rebbe Rashab and the Frierdiker Rebbe. Mendel was a little older, but there were a lot of these boys. They were Poshet, incredibly special. Mamish, the Tmimim's children. So the elder of Siddim haben sich mal sehr abgegeben. There was a very great closeness. And the Verbracht, Reb David Oradorker was bringing. So somebody said to him by the Fabrengen that there's a shmua that Reb David Oradorker had Ba'avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. He's holding by Avav Yid. He's holding by love and fear of God. So he said, again, this is the story, but Kit said, the Piratim, I don't remember at the moment, Es fleckt sich amola kitzelton. And he started crying. It's very hard to translate that into English. I used to get an occasional itch. In Yiddish, a kitzel means a tickle. But the English equivalent of that is an itch. I would get an occasional itch, meaning to say, sometimes I would have a feeling which is approaching. He started crying. So the Mendel tells the story, and he says, whenever the David HaDik's niggin was Yemin Hashem Reimeimu, that was his niggin. Ay, 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 ay. He says, Mendel zog Yemin Hashem Reimeimu. That's the story. The Mendel was a Fabreng, he was a Bocher, and if David HaDik was from the greatest Tmimim in Lubavitch, and they asked him about Avav Yid, as Flekze Chamola Kitzelton. So Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem, it requires a great mind, it requires a lot of dedication, and it requires a lot of depth of character. To have feelings for something spiritual, to have feelings for Hashem, feelings for the Eibishter. Says the Alter Rebbe, the point of all these feelings is your life. The point of all these feelings, I would translate it practically. You're going to see later on in this Pedic, well, the Alter Rebbe is going to explain the difference between the brain and the heart. And what he's going to say in part is that if you know something in your brain, you don't necessarily act on it. But if you know something in your heart, you do. And this is the Taish Moyach Shalat Ala Leiv. In this case, the mind educates the heart. And by the mind educating the heart controls the body. If the behavior of the person, the Reisa and the Rabban, Afilu Diktu Kalshal Divrei Seifrim, is consistent with the Rasul of the Eibishter. And this is the first 10 lines of Pedic Tezayin. Now, what is there to notice that's unusual and distinctive? The Pedic begins with the words Klal Gadol. You see, V'zeh Klal Gadol? Now go down to where I stopped. I read about 10 lines, and then there's a period. V'yeser al kein tzorach leida Klal Gadol. You see that? How many times do you have Klal Gadol in the entire book of Tanya? I think twice. And they're both on the same page. Klal Gadol. Now, it's possible that there's a third Klal Gadol or a fourth Klal Gadol, but I remember the Rebbe talking about Klal Gadol. But the Rebbe's Klal Gadol was V'yahavt l'recha kamoicha zeh Klal Gadol b'Torah. And the Rebbe, Kedak Rebbe Chodesh, would rip everything open. He would say there's a Klal and there's a Prat, there's a detail and there's a generality. And then there's a Klal Gadol, there's a great Klal. And then there's Kol HaTorah Kula, the whole Torah. Klal Gadol, a great principle, is not yet the whole Torah. It's only a Klal Gadol, but there's more Klal Gadol. They were connected by the Mishnah, says in Masechta Shabbos. Klal Gadol Omru B'Shabbos. There's a great principle. One of the Prakim in Masechta Shabbos begins with the words Klal Gadol Omru B'Shabbos. And the Rebbe would analyze what is the meaning of the words Klal Gadol. The Rebbe brings here in his notes that Klal Gadol Omru B'Shabbos doesn't mean in a principle that involves a lot of things, but it's a principle that's most important. Because the Klal Gadol Omru B'Shabbos doesn't encompass many details. It encompasses something very serious. And the Rebbe says that when the Alter Rebbe says here also, Klal Gadol B'Avedas Hashem Lebeinanim, and then 10 lines later, he says, Klal Gadol B'Aveda Lebeinanim. Klal Gadol over here doesn't mean a rule that's very encompassing, it means that the rule is very, very, very important. And again, the Rebbe had a Sikha, the Chelik in Zayin, and the Kut Sikhas, where he brings the machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Hillel. Hillel says about Avos Yisrael, it's Kol HaTorah Kula, the entire Torah. Rabbi Akiva says about Rav L'Rech Kamecha that it's Klal Gadol B'Torah, which means that there's other Klalim, and the Rebbe explains what the machlokes is. But over there, Klal Gadol means that it includes half of Judaism. Half of Judaism is bein adam lachavedi, between man and fellow. That's v'ahavta l'reach kamecha. The other half of Judaism is bein adam lamok, between man and God. That's not included in pashtus. If the v'ahavta l'reach kamecha. So over there, klal gadol means a very inclusive principle. Over here, klal gadol means a principle that deals with something very important. What's the very important? In the previous page, we talked about a bein, and we said there's a bein that's called avodah. Whether the avodah means he's fighting with the yetzer hara, or the avodah means that he wants to do 101 times, so he's creating a fight with the yetzer hara, and he successfully does the contemplation, and he reveals a full avas Hashem and yiras Hashem. And again, I'm going to go with the way I explained it in the beginning of today's shiur on the madregi, which is called aveda tamal abeinim. The klal gadol, which you have to know about all of that fancy stuff, is that the point is lim shel v'lishleit, to dominate my life. The point of it all is not the feelings of the Eibush, in the heart. The point of these feelings is lo ya'amedrish ikir el ha'maisa ha'maisa hu ikir, how it plays out behaviorally in our lives. Right? So what's going to be the next klal gadol? If we just read a klal gadol, what's going to be the next klal gadol? I'll tell you what the next klal gadol is. Ubagdama. To tell you what the next klal gadol is, I have to repeat again what I just said. Since the first klal gadol says that the whole point of the Av of a Yiddah is how it affects us behaviorally, what happens if a person is not so successful in arousing Av of a Yiddah? What happens if a person is not so successful in revealing Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem? But he has enough Avas Hashem and enough Yiras Hashem to control his actions. That's also Klal Gadol B'Avedas Hashem. In other words, the continuity is going to be in these 10 lines. We're finishing the discussion of the end of the previous Pedic about the consummate Beinani. A Beinani is so high that Alter Rebbe calls him Avodah Tama, which means Avodah She'eina Acharei Avodah. This person would make one more step, he'd be in the realm of Tzaddik. Not that he could, but if he would, he'd be in the realm of Tzaddik. Klal Gadol, I want you to know something very important, very severe, very serious. The point of this incredible Madrega is Azirus and Machshava, Dibur, U'Maisa, thought, speech, and action. And therefore, there's a second Klal Gadol. If the Av of a Yiddah, if the love and fear are not entirely they're supposed to be, but they translate it into Hamaisa, Hu Ha'ikir, that is the key. Okay, we're going to stop. We're going to wait a few minutes, only a few, and then we're going to do, with Hashem's help, Hayem Yem.
So that takes you back to the Beinani from the Avon Esoteris. No?
Well, what he's saying is, it doesn't matter how high the Ava is, it matters how it affects you behaviorally.
So that's the Beinani that's Loyal.
No, he's simply saying, the way I understand it, or to say what I just said in different words, the way I understand why he puts these first 10 lines in the same Pedic and doesn't put them in the previous Pedic, is because he's really saying these 10 lines as a segue to what follows, not as a culmination of what was. If this was a hemshech to before, he would have put it in the previous Pedic, that this person is holding the Av of a Yiddah, Madrega of Aveda Tama. The point of it all is Teda Mitzvahs practically. Why does he put it here? Because he's segueing what he's going to say later. That since the point of the Av of a Yiddah is Machshava Dibur Maisa, whether the Av Yiddah is on the highest level or the Av Yiddah is on a level lower than that, that's less important than the Klal Gadol, which now translates into action. That's why it's the beginning of this Pedic and not the end of the previous.
But it's still out of the year that the person aroused himself.
Right, correct. Okay, I'll see you in a few.